What happens when Prince Harry takes the gloves off on live TV and challenges Whoopi Goldberg to her face? This wasn't an interview. It was a war of words, family secrets, and raw truth. And it ended with Harry being told to leave the stage. Make sure to subscribe and comment below. This is the confrontation everyone will be talking about. What happens when a royal walks into an American talk show and leaves the studio in chaos? This was not just another celebrity interview. It started with polite smiles, but ended with shouting, stunned silence, and a guest being asked to leave the stage. The cameras were rolling, the audience was glued to their seats, and what was supposed to be a routine conversation turned into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Prince Harry, the Duke once known for his quiet charm, appeared on The View, expecting to talk about his latest memoir and charity work. Instead, what unfolded was a fiery clash between two strong voices, Harry and Whoopi Goldberg, that no one in the room or watching at home could have predicted. From family secrets to public betrayal, from private grief to public judgment, this is a moment that pulled no punches. Trust me, by the end, everyone picked a side. Subscribe now and drop a comment below. Was Whoopi out of line, or did Harry go too far? Want to know what you think? The cameras turned on, and everything looked normal at first. Prince Harry walked onto the set of The View with that familiar calm energy. He shook hands with the co-hosts, gave a polite nod to the audience, and took his seat on the panel. Studio crowd clapped loudly, phones in the air, capturing every second of what seemed like another celebrity guest appearance. From the outside, it felt routine. The lights were warm, the smiles looked genuine, and the atmosphere had that usual talk show buzz. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed him with her trademark confidence, thanking him for joining and calling him Your Royal Highness. Harry gave a half smile and replied, "Please, just Harry." It came out smooth, but something about the way he said it felt different. His voice was steady, but the smile did not fully reach his eyes. There was a small pause, just long enough to feel awkward. Whoopi chuckled and said, "All right, just Harry. We are happy to have you." Then she followed up with a light joke about how he probably missed the royal silverware. The audience laughed, but Harry did not. He smiled politely, looked down for a moment, and then looked back up. His reaction was cool, but not playful. Something was off, even if it was hard to put a finger on it. The energy in the room shifted slightly. It was not obvious, but the warmth that filled the first few moments started to cool down. Harry's body language became more still. The casual fun of a daytime show started to feel a little more tense. If you have not yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss confrontations like this one. This one was just getting started. The conversation started the way these interviews usually do. Whoopi leaned forward with a welcoming smile and said, "So Harry, your new memoir has made quite the impact. You opened up about your family, your childhood, your struggles. That must have been a difficult decision." Harry nodded slowly, his hands resting on his knees. His expression was calm, but there was something tight about his jaw. "Yes," he said. "Candid, that is one word for it. Some people call it truth. Others prefer to call it betrayal." The tone in the room changed just a little. It was subtle, but noticeable. The audience grew quieter, leaning in a bit more. The co-hosts exchanged a glance. Whoopi kept her focus on Harry and asked, "Do you think there is a line between honesty and harm? I mean, families are complicated. Everyone has their version of the story. Is truth always the same for everyone?" Harry shifted in his seat. His shoulders stiffened. He looked directly at Whoopi. "Truth is truth. I lived those moments. I did not imagine them. They were real." Whoopi did not back off. She tilted her head and said, "Of course. But what if your truth is not the whole picture? What if someone else in your family sees things completely differently?" That was the moment it happened. The first real crack in the surface. Harry's expression changed. His eyes narrowed just slightly. His lips pressed together before he answered. "So are you saying I am lying?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "No," Whoopi said, keeping her tone even. I am saying that sometimes truth depends on where you are standing when you look at it. There was a small pause, not long, but just long enough to feel the tension. The audience felt it too. They stopped clapping. No one laughed. Phones stayed steady. The energy was no longer light. That was the moment people realized this was not going to be a normal interview. Harry leaned forward slightly. His voice was steady, but something in his eyes had changed. He was no longer just answering questions. He was defending something much deeper. I did not just write a book, he said. I told the truth about what my wife and I went through. The press tore Meghan apart for years. They called her names. They ran stories designed to hurt her. The people who should have protected us did nothing. They stood back and watched. The audience stayed quiet. No one clapped this time. The co-hosts looked uneasy. Even the cameraman seemed to move a little slower, unsure of where this was heading. Whoopi nodded slightly, but did not soften. Harry, I hear that. I know. You went through pain. Real pain. But there is something else here too. When someone shares so much of their private story in such a public way, it can cross a line. It can stop being healing and start being emotional weaponizing. Harry blinked, like he had just been slapped. Weaponizing, he repeated, his voice rising. You think I am weaponizing my life? My trauma? I think, Whoopi said carefully, that when the story keeps coming out in interviews, in books, in documentaries, there is a point where people wonder why. Why now? Why like this? Harry's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. His face turned red. He sat still, but you could feel the anger building. You think I made this up for money? He asked. You think I sat down and poured out my life to make a paycheck? The room went completely silent. Someone in the audience gasped. One of the co-hosts shifted awkwardly in her seat. No one spoke. Harry's voice dropped lower, but it had more force now. I gave up everything. My home, my country, my titles. I walked away from all of it to protect my wife. And you'd sit here and suggest that it was just about a book deal? Whoopi held his gaze, but even she paused before answering. This was no longer a discussion. This was a line being drawn. And both of them had just stepped across it. Harry sat forward, both hands now gripping the edges of his chair. His voice was tight, holding back frustration, but it was starting to crack through. Where was their consideration? He asked, when Meghan was struggling to even get out of bed, when she said she wanted to disappear, when we asked for help and were told no? The audience sat in stunned silence. Harry's eyes scanned the room, as if daring anyone to deny what he was saying. They cut off our security. They left us exposed. Yet we had threats coming in every day, and they knew it. Still, they turned their backs on us. We were not asking for privilege. We were asking to feel safe. Whoopi kept her expression steady. She waited a beat before responding. And your father? What about his decades of service? What about your grandmother? 70. Years of duty to a country, holding a family and an institution together. Does none of that matter now? Harry shook his head, clearly frustrated. It matters. Of course it does. But what about the people in that system? What about the human beings behind the titles? Where was that same sense of duty when my wife was falling apart under their roof? Whoopi leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. You keep talking about pain, and I believe you. But at what point does protecting your family turn into attacking the one you came from? It is not an attack, Harry snapped. His voice was louder now, his cheeks flushed. It is survival. We were drowning. And instead of pulling us out, they threw in more weight. The energy in the room was shifting fast. The tension was no longer under the surface. It was out in the open, filling every corner of the set. Whoopi narrowed her eyes slightly. Maybe they were trying to hold together something bigger than just your personal story. The crown is not just a family. It is a symbol to millions of people. Harry's voice broke through again, sharper this time. Then maybe that symbol is broken. 'Cause if millions of people come before your own child's safety, then it is not a symbol worth saving. He did not look away. Not from Whoopi. Not from the audience. Not from the weight of what he had just said. The line between family and fame was no longer just blurry. It was on fire. Whoopi took a slow breath and said something that shifted the entire room. Harry, I understand this pain. I really do. But your mother also shared her story. She sat down and gave that interview. She made a choice to speak her truth just like you have. Harry's eyes went wide. For a moment he looked like he had not heard her right. Then his face changed. His voice came out sharp and low. Do not bring my mother into this. The studio went still. You could have heard a pin drop. I mean it, Harry said, leaning forward now, his voice rising. You do not know what she went through. You did not live it. I watched her be destroyed by that machine. I watched her cry in hallways, chased by cameras, torn apart in headlines. And when she died in that tunnel, they said it was an accident. But I know what really killed her. Whoopi did not flinch, but her voice became more serious. I met your mother, Harry. I interviewed her. She was strong. She was smart. And yes, she was trapped in many ways. But she also made choices, just like you are making now. The words landed. Like a punch to the gut, the audience gasped out loud. No one clapped. No one moved. The tension in the room snapped tight, and you could feel it in your chest. Harry stared at Whoopi like she had just crossed a line that could never be undone. His hands were shaking now, not from nerves, but from pure emotion. She did not choose to be hunted, he said. She did not choose to be left unprotected. She did not choose to be silenced. Whoopi kept her eyes on him. And she also did not choose to burn the whole house down on her way out. That was it. The moment everything broke wide open. There was no going back after that. No more polite talk, no more safe ground. They were deep in the middle of a storm, and neither one was backing down. Harry sat back in his chair for a moment, breathing hard. Then he leaned forward again, voice tight, chest rising and falling. You think this is privilege? He asked. You think walking away from everything I ever knew, everything I was born into, was easy? No. You think watching your wife cry every night from racist attacks and knowing no one will lift a finger to help is privilege? His voice was getting louder now. His hands moved more as he spoke. He was no longer just answering. He was pleading to be understood. We were isolated, not just physically, emotionally. They left us out there. When Meghan said she did not want to live anymore, I asked for help. I begged. And they told me it would not look good for the crown. That is what we were dealing with. The studio was frozen again. All eyes were locked on him. Whoopi looked calm, but her next words were sharp. You had choices, Harry. You could have stayed and fought. You could have used your name, your platform, and tried to change it from the inside. But instead you left. And then you cashed in on the pain. Harry's mouth dropped slightly. He blinked like he had been slapped. Cashed in? He repeated, You think I did this for money? You think we told our story to make a profit? Whoopi nodded slowly. You signed $100 million deal to talk about your family. You wrote a book. You filmed a series. People see that and wonder if this was really about healing or something else. Harry looked down for a second, then back up. His voice was quieter now, but it shook. I was not trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to survive. I could not live that life anymore. I could not watch history repeat itself. Whoopi's voice turned colder. Then say that. Say you chose peace over the fight. But do not act like you are the only one who has been hurt. You say it was brave to leave, but some people see it as cowardice. Because staying and fixing a broken system, that takes a different kind of strength. Harry said nothing. His jaw was tight. His eyes looked glassy. You could feel the moment hit him. The weight, the pressure. The years of anger and confusion crashing into a single moment of doubt. Harry leaned back in his chair, his eyes darting toward the floor manager. He took a deep breath, then looked straight at Whoopi. Get me out of here, he said quietly, but his voice carried weight. It was not a request. It was a warning. The room held its breath. Get me out of this interview now, he said again, louder. This time, Whoopi did not blink. She sat up straighter, looked him square in the eyes, and said, I think you need to leave. Harry froze. The audience could feel the shift. This was no longer just an argument. This was a moment that would be replayed again and again. "Excuse me?" Harry asked, his voice sharp. "Did you just tell me to leave?" "I did," Whoopi replied calmly. "This is my show. You came here as a guest, and you have crossed every line of decency and respect." Harry's face flushed red, his jaw tightened. He looked like he was trying to process what had just happened. Like he could not quite believe it. "This is unbelievable," he said, shaking his head. "You invite me here, push me, insult my family, bring up my mother, and now you are kicking me out." "You are not being kicked out," Whoopi replied. "You're being asked to leave because this is not a therapy session. It is a conversation. And you made it personal in a way that went too far." Harry stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the studio floor. The audience gasped again. Some were recording, phones raised. For a second, Harry looked like he might say something more. But instead, he stood there in silence, jaw tight, hands clenched. The moment hung in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Harry turned toward the exit, his steps heavy and slow. The studio was dead quiet. No whispers, no movement, just the weight of what had just happened. He was almost at the edge of the set when Whoopi's voice cut through the silence. "Was it worth it?" She did not shout. She just asked, calm and clear. Harry stopped, his back still to the audience. His shoulders rose and fell as he stood there thinking. Everyone waited. He did not turn around. He did not face the crowd or the cameras, but after a long pause, he said, "Just loud enough for the microphone to catch it. I did not lose my family. They lost me." Then he walked off the stage. No music played. No applause followed. The audience sat frozen, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. It was one of those moments that felt bigger than television. Something real had cracked. It's open, something raw had spilled out, and no one in that room would forget it. Whoopi sat back down, slowly adjusting her chair as the studio lights hummed above. Her expression was unreadable. She took a breath, glanced toward the camera, and offered the slightest shake of her head. "Well," she said with a faint smile, "that was ... something." The audience stayed quiet, still processing what they had just seen. A royal guest had come and gone, leaving behind a conversation no one saw coming. "We will be right back after this break," Whoopi said, her voice calm but heavy. "Now it is your turn." Was Whoopi right to push back? Or did Harry finally say what needed to be said? Drop your thoughts in the comments and do not forget to hit subscribe. We read every single one.